I'm Joe Krolichek. I'm the director of the Tulsa Area Emergency Management Agency. I want to come before you today provide a status update regarding the Keystone Dam release along the Arkansas River. We're being notified that as of noon today, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers will be releasing 250 CFS into the Arkansas River. This will cause flooding throughout Tulsa County. Some of the areas that we want residents to be aware of: Candlestick Beach, areas south of Wakaiwa Road, Town and Country neighborhood, houses around the Boys Home, Meadow Valley, Garden City, Cherry Hill, Wind River, and any divisions, housing divisions south of 121st from the river to Sheridan. We're also going to see backflow along various creeks and streams that feed into the Arkansas River, and multiple street closings all up and down the Arkansas. This is going to be a dangerous situation, and we want to urge the public to stay away from those areas. If you are in those areas, you need to be prepared to move now. That water will rise. If you're in a low-lying area and you know you're going to probably have to take water and get out, you should probably begin planning now to get out. At 3 o'clock today, Tulsa Area Emergency Management Agency will begin sounding our flood sirens along the Arkansas River. We will sound them one cycle every 30 minutes for 6 hours. This is for a warning system. We want people to be aware the water will be coming up and to be cognizant of if you are in a low-lying area. We are continuing to monitor the levee situation. We've brought in additional pumps to handle that, any additional flow that may occur behind the levee system. And we also have the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on standby and monitoring the levee with us to make sure that it is going to withstand the 250 release. If you are in a low-lying area and you need to evacuate and you're looking for shelter, we have multiple shelters that were either up or getting ready to be up. Please monitor the City of Tulsa website and 211 for information on the shelter closest to your home. At this time, I'd like to pass it over to David Williams with the Army Corps of Engineers to discuss the impacts from 250 CFS.
Good morning. So additional inflow into Keystone Lake is requiring us to make adjustments to the releases from the dam. And as Joe mentioned, we are going to increase to 250,000 cubic feet per second at noon today. Currently, 300,000 cubic feet per second is flowing into Keystone Lake. We expect that to peak at around 320,000 cubic feet per second later today, and then slowly begin to recede. So our plan is, at this time, at 10 o'clock this morning, we are increasing to 235,000 cubic feet per second, and then we'll increase to 250,000 cubic feet per second at noon. We will continue a release of 250,000 cubic feet per second through Sunday, and then begin to decrease those releases until we get to a channel capacity flow next week. Travel times you can expect are 2 to 4 hours in the Sand Springs area, 6 hours through Midtown Tulsa into the 71st Street corridor, and then 8 to 12 hours in South Tulsa, Bixby area, and to the Tulsa-Wagner County line. I would like to introduce Tulsa County Commissioner Karen Keith.
David, before you go, can you talk about the viewing areas for Muskogee? What's going on in that direction?
Certainly.
Okay.
So to give an update about other areas, not just Keystone, we have also begun to make a flood release from Skytook Lake. We are at capacity at Skytook, so we began a release of 3,000 cubic feet per second this morning, and that will affect areas along Bird Creek. And we continue to make large releases from Fort Gibson Dam, so we have impacts downstream Muskogee and downstream from Muskogee where we have the ongoing flood, and we forecast peak flow in the Muskogee area and downstream from there of around 530,000 cubic feet per second. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, David. I know he's been hard at work. Just some updates on the levee. We had a couple of issues, but the Corps is jumping in and assisting our levee group. We have what's called a sand boil. It's at East 81st West Avenue. Everybody is working on it, and we expect and anticipate that everything's going to be fine with that. I would also say that as the water sits on the levees, the longer that duration, the more risk we have for failures. But we are amping up all eyes on the levee to make sure as we have any issues that we are on it immediately. As you just heard, some of the neighborhoods along the river, now many of them have water in those homes, and with the anticipated 250,000 cubic feet per second heading their way, we know that they're going to take on a whole lot more water and more of the homes will be inundated. Power is about to be cut to Meadow Valley and Town and Country. We are also checking, I thought the Tulsa Boys Home was fine, it's up on a hill, but they're right, Meadow Valley is right below them. So PSO is trying to check on their power situation. They're already having to bring in porta-johns. So it might be possible that we have to move some of the boys. Some of them have been sent home, but Greg and the staff is well on that. The aquarium, we've been hauling in some 500-pound sandbags. So grateful to the Allen Edwards group for pulling those together for us, and some of the volunteers that have been loading them on trucks and getting them there. So just staging, things are high and dry there right now, so we just want to be prepared if it gets any worse. So all hands on deck. Everybody's working really well together. If you have issues, call and get help, and I think our mayor's going to address more of that. So don't drive into deep water. More and more blockades are going to be going up. Just go around or go home if you're going to be high and dry there. Our mayor has been such a steady, calm voice through all of this, so grateful to have him.
Karen, can you repeat what you said about the power? Sorry. Repeat what you were saying about the power.
Meadow Valley and Town and Country, they're getting ready to cut those off. So PSO is sending notices, and then the Sheriff's Department and Sand Springs Police Department are out letting those neighborhoods know. But because the Tulsa Boys Home is likely on that same grid, we're trying to find out if they're going to be impacted as well. So. Yes, thank you for asking that. I should have mentioned it. We're in the process of moving everybody out, and the family shelter has been evacuated, and they're taking food supplies so they don't get wasted to John 3:16. And I was over there early this morning, and it's kind of all hands on deck. So people are really working well together. We just need to be prepared, if things get any worse. So those two facilities are being emptied.
Thank you all very much. I want to update you on a couple things that we've done. We've really made the conscious decision here. There's always, I think, maybe a concern about just putting out so much information on this, but we've made the conscious decision that when it comes to providing people with information that can help them protect themselves and their families and their neighbors, we want to err on the side of radical transparency. So we put out the map last night that shows the impact of the 1986 flood. All night long, our hydrologists were working on updating our current maps, showing, because Tulsa's obviously changed a lot since 1986, new developments, changes in topography, even the river itself, the corridor has changed in the last 33 years. And so they have updated all of that, and we have now created a website at cityoftulsa.org/rivermaps, and folks can go to that and see all of the mapping that we're utilizing to manage this response, and also be able to utilize that mapping to make their own decisions about what types of steps they need to take to protect themselves, their families, and their neighbors. So as of right now on that site, what you'll see are the latest maps that we have. One is a PDF showing the impact of a 250,000 cubic feet per second release from Keystone Dam, the projected impact of that. And then there's another PDF document that shows this latest, really fine-tooth combed, revised
impact of 305,000 cubic feet per second. That folks can look at kind of in the history of our city, the worst case scenario. They can see what we can expect from the release that's going to start at noon today. They can see the worst case scenario as well. And then we're also putting on a map that's a little more high tech that folks can utilize, that you can toggle between those two flow amounts if you are so inclined. Some of us are more comfortable using just a plain PDF document, so we want to make it as accessible for folks regardless of their comfort in using technology. I would reiterate what I said yesterday about just how proud I am of the work that the team that we have in place is doing on responding to this. I have complete confidence in our ability to handle this properly because I see the level of expertise that are in that room and out in the field amongst our first responders, the support that we're getting from the state government, the support we're getting from the federal government. It's really extraordinary to see it all come together and see these folks utilize the skills that many of them have spent decades really preparing for this very moment. I also want to kind of walk you through a few areas that we're focused on with this 250,000 CFS, the impact areas that are of concern to us. As Commissioner Keith did a good job of highlighting, certainly from just working our way downstream, an initial area of concern for us is the levee system. The levees are built well, and the Corps of Engineers has done an excellent job in working with us to analyze them over the last several years. But when you're putting this kind of load on them for several days, we want to maintain constant vigilance on that and monitor for any impacts that may occur. As you move on down into downtown and midtown, you can expect impacts on Riverside Drive. And I'm going to encourage folks, if you don't have to drive on Riverside, please don't. There are other streets that you can utilize to get around town that aren't going to be impacted by this in any way. There will be parts of Riverside Drive that will be impacted by this. Of course, the river park's already impacted by it, but more so as that flow comes in. And then South Tulsa, we're deploying forces down there in a really concentrated way to focus on neighborhoods in South Tulsa and businesses in that area. And of course, we've all at this point seen the impact on the River Spirit Casino. So those are the areas within the Tulsa city limits that we're focused on, but I also want to say that our team here has done I think a really good job of working in collaboration with our neighbors in Bixby, in Sand Springs, in Jinx, and even further downstream, and providing them with any information that we have and that our hydrologists at the city are putting together so that they have access to it as well. I want to reiterate for folks that you can look at those maps, and what I ask is that you look at those maps, and if your property, your home, your business is within one of those highlighted areas, that doesn't mean you need to evacuate immediately. What that does mean is that you need to be prepared to evacuate. Please don't wait for us to make an announcement that your neighborhood needs to evacuate and then start preparing, or wait for the Tulsa police officer to show up at your house and tell you need to evacuate. Go ahead and take those precautions and those steps so that if that directive comes out, you're ready to go. That's why we wanted to release the worst case scenario last night. That's why we want to make these maps available today. We'll continue to monitor this as it comes along, but again, I want to say how thankful I am for the team that we have in place. It's doing a really excellent job on managing the response to this. And lastly, I'd say in this, what we're going to see property damage with this. At this point, there's no question about that. We're already seeing property damage by it. But what could make this a tragedy is if we lose a human life. Property can be paid for, it can be repaired. Property is a dollars and cents issue. But human life, you can never replace that. And the way that you endanger a human life in a situation like this is if folks aren't prepared and they don't follow the directions that are received to evacuate if they receive them. So we ask folks we're going to give everyone as much information in advance as much as we can so that you can be prepared for that, to protect yourself and your family and your neighbors. But we need you to be ready and be prepared and to follow directives from law enforcement if they ask you to evacuate your home. And I want to say that Tulsa Police Department in particular has just done an extraordinary job over the last several days. And to speak more about what they're doing and recommendations that they have, I want to introduce Officer Jeannie Pierce. Thank you.
Thank you. It is recommended that residents living in the neighborhoods along the Arkansas River and the 100-year floodplain should prepare for evacuations. If you leave your home, take all electronic precautions by switching off the main breaker to electricity and disconnect any emergency power systems you have, including generators. Have a packed bag with prescriptions and clothing for multiple days. Charge your cell phones and place them in the low power mode. Put valuables in higher place and bring your pets with you. Leave your home with important documents for you and the members of your family. Take videos and pictures of your home for insurance purposes. If you are an evacuee or someone you know is evacuated and requires home health care and or in-home hospice, you need to let your healthcare providers know where you are evacuating to so you can continue to receive services. It is important to have a 2-week supply of prescriptions ready if you're evacuated, and have additional copies of your prescriptions, doctor and pharmacy. This includes mental health medications. Communicate this message for those in your life who may need assistance with this. Communicate with your family who needs to take these precautions but have physical limitations and may prevent them from doing so. For safety's sake, assume that any downed utility line is energized with deadly electric current. Stay away from the line and do not touch it. Report it to PSO immediately at 1-888-218-3919. Please do not approach crews and utility vehicles and ask when your power will be restored. Doing so could jeopardize your safety and those individuals who are working. Outward vision from those utility vehicles can be limited, and a crew may not see you when you approach them. Tulsa Police Department and the Tulsa County Sheriff Department are going to these areas. They will be in full uniform. Their lights will be on. If they recommend that you evacuate, please do so. Please don't put yourself or anybody else's lives in danger. Now, if anybody has any questions? Oh, you're fine.
I don't want to put him on the spot, but I think Sheriff Regalado is here. Is that right? There he is, behind that giant light. That's why I couldn't see him. The Tulsa County Sheriff's Office is doing extraordinary work out there, and I'd like to ask Sheriff Regalado if he can share a bit about that.
Thank you, Mayor. I won't spend much time up here. I think a lot of the important things have been covered. And again, I would thank all the individuals that are up here and assure the public that their leadership has this under control. We have started preparing this from day one. And as the mayor stated earlier, full transparency in what we are doing is the goal here so that we can keep our citizens abreast of every issue that is coming. The couple of things I would like to add is that in the next few days and possibly few weeks in the recovery process of this, it's important for our citizens to realize that we are going to need our roads that are not underwater for first responders and potential evacuations and things like that. So I would ask our citizens not to pull over on bridges or main thoroughfares to gawk or rubberneck at the activities going on, because you're potentially tying up, and I'm destroying everything up here. We're potentially tying up needed access to our roads and things like that. And secondly, I'd also ask that our citizens remain vigilant in their neighborhoods and ask citizens not to drive those neighborhoods out because we do not want any looting or any things like that to compound the already issues that we're facing right now. I'm confident, again, in the leadership, the collaborative efforts between all the agencies and counties and municipalities, And I'm also extremely confident in our citizenry. As the eyes of America start to focus on Tulsa, I think we are going to be a model of what resiliency and strength truly is here in Tulsa. Thank you very much.
We'd be happy to take any questions that you have.
Right now, what are the chances that the 250,000 CFS release is going to stay through Sunday and it's not going to have an increase?
So at this time, being as close as we are to the peak of the inflow coming into the reservoir, I have good confidence that we're going to remain at 250 and continue that through the weekend. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind is additional rainfall above the dam is problematic. So we are always cognizant of that. However, our plan is to stay at 250 through the weekend and then begin to step that release down.
What is the potential impact of families in Jinx that are asking about additional preparations? We know that they're preparing along the Arkansas River and the river walk there, but additional families that have asked us a lot this morning.
The city of Jinx, the majority of Jinx is protected by a levee system. As long as that levee is holding, and it should be okay. The areas that we're looking at impacting are the areas along Polecat Creek that are south of the Creek Turnpike. So if you're along Polecat Creek in that area, you need to be fully aware the river's going to come up and Polecat will come up as a result. There's a trailer park there that I believe Jinx has already been addressing. A couple farms in that area that may have some impacts. Jinx PD and Jinx Fire are working very diligently with those citizens to help address any issues that they have.
As far as the evacuations, I know that nobody's under a mandatory evacuation, but the neighborhoods that you all rolled out this morning that are new proposed, they should evacuate right now if they want to, or they should just get.
They should be ready to go.
Okay.
Yeah, you should be ready to go. If you see that water creeping up, get out of there. You know, we're not doing a mandatory evacuation. We're not going to force people to leave. You know, but you should take some precautions to save your life. If the water's coming up, you need to be ready to go at a moment's notice. Now's the time to be ready to walk out that door, get in your car, and leave. If you need additional time to get out, you should probably take some additional time if you know you're next to the river. If you can see the river and you're next to it, you probably need to go ahead and look at getting out.
I know you mentioned the two neighborhoods that are being, having electricity checked this morning. If the water stays at 250 through the weekend, does that impact the refineries like PSO along Riverside Drive over there, and the Sinclair?
The refineries are behind Levee C. We are aware that there's the PSO electric plant. We've been in constant communications with AEP PSO. They have a plan in place for addressing that plant. We're not expecting any sort of impacts to the electrical system from that plant at this time.
When do you all anticipate that you may, I know that we were warning yesterday, and obviously overnight, the water behind River Spirit and that whole corridor from 71st to 91st is a lot closer to Riverside. When do you all anticipate that may close, just so we can alert our viewers? Stop using it now, or just start planning your alternate routes, that type of thing?
Typically, the way the water typically works is about 2 hours to Sand Springs, about 4 hours to downtown, about 8 hours to Jinx, 10 hours to the Bixby area. So you should anticipate by the end of the day today, the water being in your area if you're in Tulsa County.
Could I say something?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Joe. And Joe makes a really good point that I think we need to emphasize here, which is, the release of 250,000 CFS starts at noon today, but to your point, folks aren't going to see it the impact of it for hours after that. And one of the challenges here is, especially in areas of South Tulsa that are going to be impacted by this more than other parts of the city, that could come after dark. And so if you're in a neighborhood that is in South Tulsa and you look at this and you see that there's a potential on the maps that we're releasing right now, please don't wait until the nighttime to decide to leave. Err on the side of caution. And again, on Riverside Drive, really encourage folks, if you don't have to drive on Riverside Drive, don't. With rain today, but also just the fact that the river doesn't rise automatically when the releases start. It occurs over a period of time. And because of the release starting at noon, you're going to be getting into the late hours of the day and even the nighttime before we see the full impact of this. I mean,
How many shelters do you guys have now, and how many do you plan on opening?
so that's a good question, Jody.
We have 3 right now.
There's 3 right now that the American Red Cross is organizing. We have one that has over 50 folks in it at this point from one apartment complex in particular. But the Red Cross is part of our team in the Emergency Operations Center that's doing a really fantastic job on organizing sheltering operations for folks who are impacted by this and don't have anywhere else to go.
At this point, are you anticipating that it'll still stay the smaller individual sites versus like having to set up a large scale shelter site like at a huge?
So far, the Red Cross is utilizing individual sites, yes, smaller scale sites. Well, thank you all very much, and any of us will be available after this for individual interviews. Thanks a lot.